Hi, welcome back. Let's now proceed on how to create a virtual machine. What we'll see in this module is how to set up a virtual machine with VirtualBox. We'll go through the different steps and options to create a VM. Let's see how to do this. Launch or open VirtualBox Manager. Click on the blue New icon. This will launch the new VM configuration wizard. Let's provide a name for this VM. I'll use ORCL12 Lab. You may have noticed that it changed the type and version of the operating system. VirtualBox will try to determine the type and version for you based on the name you have given to the VM. You may select a different type of operating system, such as Windows or Solaris, or if you are using Linux, you may choose a different Linux distribution. When you're done selecting the type and version of the operating system, just click Continue. The next step is to select or assign the amount of memory to this VM. By default, it will assign 1 GB. I would recommend to assign at least 2 GB, or if you have enough resources, go to 4 GB. This is especially useful if you're installing and configuring database software. Once you have assigned the memory, just click Continue. The next step is to assign the hard disk to the VM. For the time being, let's skip this step. Once you have selected the Do Not Add a Virtual Hard Disk, click Create. This will give you a warning that you are about to create a virtual machine without any hard disk. This is okay, just click Continue. Now we have configured just the base skeleton for this VM. Let's now proceed to define processor, disk, and network. For that, let's click on the Settings button here. Now, on this is the specific settings for this VM. Let's click on the Description tab. This has an open text field where you can add any description about this virtual machine. I would recommend to include what's the operating system that you are installing, what kind of software you are installing, and any account that you have defined on this VM. For example, the important ones are root, probably Oracle, and any personal account. Now the next step is just to click on System and then Processor. Depending on your computer, how many cores you have, if you have hyper-threading enabled or not, this will show you the number of CPUs that you may assign to this VM. In my case, I can assign up to 4 CPUs, but I will assign only 2. Once you have finished assigning the processors, let's click on the Display menu. Here there is not much to do, but the one option that is really important is just to select the Enable 3D Acceleration. In my experience, when you're configuring Windows or even Linux, by enabling the 3D acceleration, will provide better performance, better response time when interacting with the console. Now let's proceed to the storage section. Because we didn't create the disk when we were creating the VM, we cannot see, or we don't have any disk assigned to this VM. So the first thing we need to do is just to create the disk. For that, we select the controller SATA. This is important. SATA provides better performance to the VM. And then let's click on the Add Hard Disk. The first thing we'll do is just to ask us if we want to choose an existing disk in case we already have defined another virtual machine and we want to reuse those disks, or if we want to create new disks. Because this is the first VM, let's create a new disk. On the hard disk file type, it will show us three different options for this VM, for this hard disk. That is the VDI format, VHD, or VMDK. If you are not using any other virtualization software on your computer, let's just use the VDI option. Now, on the storage on the physical hard disk, this is basically when you are creating the virtual hard disk, how you want the host OS to manage the allocation of that space. Dynamically allocated assigns a space as is needed, whereas fixed space assigns all requested space when the virtual disk is created. Let's pick dynamically allocated, then click Continue. Now let's provide a name for the disk. I like to use the name of the virtual machine and then assign a label to this disk. For example, ORC12 lab-disk 1. You may select a different location from the default one, and for that you will click on this icon. In my case, I will use a default location. So the next thing to do is just to assign the size of this disk. I will use 36 gigabytes. Because I'm using dynamically allocated disk, even though I assign 36 gigabytes, it will only use the space it needs. Once you are done selecting the name, the location, and the size of the disk, click on Create. Once you have created the first disk, go back to Controller SATA and click on the Use Host I/O Cache. Most of the times, this helps improve I/O performance for this virtual machine. Also, if you click on the VDI and you have created the disk in a solid state drive, it will be good if you check the solid state drive. This is optional, but recommended. Now we need to put a CD on the CD tray or a DVD tray. In a prior lecture, we downloaded, or we asked you to download the Linux software. And when you download the software, it was downloaded as an ISO file. So let's assign this ISO file to this virtual machine. For that, let's click on the empty CD tray and then click on this CD. But then choose Virtual Optical Disk File. Search for the ISO file, and once you have it selected, click on Open. Once you have it assigned, then we are done with the storage section. The next thing we need to do is just to set up the network. VirtualBox by default selects a NAT network. So this will not allow you to connect to this virtual machine from any other computer. In order to change that, we need to change the NAT to bridge adapter. By doing this, now we can connect to this virtual machine from the host or any other computer on your network. Now, let's move on to the shared folders. Shared folders will allow you to present a folder from your computer into the VM. By doing this, you can exchange files to and from the VM. So for example, you may download software that you want to install on this virtual machine. You can download the software to a local folder, unzip it, and then just present the software or use the software on this or the documents on the VM. This is especially useful if you are sharing, if you have multiple VMs and you want to share the same software among them. To do this, click on the folder plus sign here. Select the folder that you want to share with the VM. In my case, it's going to be downloads. Then click open. And finally, if you want to have this folder or directory every time on your that your virtual machine is started, just click the auto mount. Once you have finished adding the folder, just click OK. You may add more folders or you can add as many folders as you need. Once you have configured the network, the storage, display, system, now click OK. We have seen how to create a virtual machine from scratch. What are the default options and how to change them? We have discussed the different types of disk, storage, and basic tuning options to help the guest OS have a decent performance. The next module in this series, we will see how to install Oracle Linux.